Hi everybody, it's me again. This is my sitting in bed look. You like? My bed is so nice and cuddly. Um, Today I'm gonna talk about this really good book I read recently, called "I Never Promised You a Rose Garden." Um, and let me see. Oh, I want to see who it's by. Oh, I should tell you this. This is a braille note. Oh, I need to face it your way, right? Is this? Can you see it? Hopefully. Yeah, this is a note taker for the blind. It has 6 keys and a display. See? And yeah, so you can read. Oh, but I wanna say, okay. I Never Promised You a Rose Garden is by Hannah Green and Joann Greenberg. And I guess it was a really popular book or like classic book. Um, but I never read it before until just recently. I downloaded it off of Bookshare, which is a which is a website for the blind to download books off of. So I just finished reading it. I read it in like a few days, even though it's a really long book. And it was really good. It's basically about this 16-year-old girl in the 1960s. Um, I'm just trying to figure out the copyright of this book. Copyright notice. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Copyright 1964 was when it was written. Okay. So 1964, and it's about this girl named Deborah, and she's 16, and she is put in a mental hospital for having pretty severe schizophrenia. And it's basically a book. It basically goes into her illness and recovery and talking about that in depth in the 3 years that she spent in the hospital. She has a really good therapist, psychiatrist named Dr. Freed, who works, as I saw it, through a very analytical orientation to this treatment uh, by going over her past, her family life, the different ways that she was sort of hurt by her parents, by other children, by being a Jew, going to a camp where she was excluded and made fun of for that, and then how she sort of retreated into her own world. The schizophrenia wasn't just like, what people think commonly of like, oh, this person is seeing aliens or something, like simple. It was a very complicated inner world that Deborah has, called Yuri, Youri. Yuri is this kingdom it's so interesting to read about, that it comes up so much in the book, her whole other reality that she inhabits. It basically has many different characters in there, gods and kings and this and that, and this group called the Collect, who just basically this whole group of people that sort of make fun of her and sort of torment her. But I think the most interesting thing about Yuri is that it has its own language. She came up with this whole language to describe, she talks to these characters in this other language, and it's very interesting. It's a combination of English words and also, made up words and metaphors and just totally different ways of saying things. Like when she and the characters from the Yor greet each other, the word suffer is their greeting. So that's an example of how they used an English word to mean something totally different from how we would use it. Or like, there are like three different words for anger, I guess, and like just totally different things. And so for the longest time, this other character named the Censor was like telling her to keep that whole language and everything about it secret. And it was not until she started to work with Dr. Freed that she was able to actually talk about this world, let Dr. Freed into the world, and share the language with her and with others on the hospital ward. And in that way, piece by piece, as she was sharing her world with these people, she was able to find some freedom from it. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about Dr. Freed and their relationship. I think it's really good. It's probably one of the best books I've read about a therapist and client, especially for that time period that this was written in. Dr. Freed really believed in Deborah's ability to make her own choices about her illness and her recovery. And, she kept saying to Deborah, I'm not going to take your sickness away from you or your symptoms away from you. She tried to differentiate the sickness, which was like, I don't even, it's hard to even describe this difference. Basically, she was saying the symptoms are defenses, and that's shielding her from the insights and things about her past and how she actually became ill, but that the illness is like a totally different thing, and that it would be up to Deborah to decide when to let that go, and that that she could choose to be in Yori if she wanted to, after this therapy was over, or not, and that was her choice. And she kept emphasizing Deborah's strengths and what she saw as her good qualities, and um, just totally created a safe space for Deborah to express whatever was on her mind. And she kept encouraging Deborah to into, let Dr. Freed into, the Yori world. And what I think is best about how she worked was that she um, had, she never cut down that other reality and just said, oh, that's just crazy, like that's just your hallucinations. She wanted to know about it. She wanted Deborah to tell her, what was going on. And she listened non-judgmentally and with curiosity, and she was able to join Deborah in that world and talk about these characters and talk about the language. And she'd always want to know, what does this mean, what you just said in that other language. And she always sort of was on the same page with Deborah on so many different things that I just really appreciated reading about that. And I think one of the most powerful quotes in the book, which is how they got the title of this. Um, oh well, first, so you guys have some background. Uh, Another thing that the book went over is life on the psychiatric ward, which was pretty scary. I mean, it was obviously a ward because she would get moved to different floors based on like how sick she was. So like in the beginning, she was on B ward, and B ward was uh, um, for the less severe cases, you know. And then she got moved to D ward, and D ward was where people were just like so out of touch with the world, and really, yeah, really, they would just break into violence unexpectedly, and you know, just all sorts of crazy things. And it was interesting. The one method that seemed to be used, to handle these people was what they called packing. So they would restrain them and then wrap them in these cold sheets when they were having, severe psychotic episodes or whatever, and claimed that that was, to calm them down. They would leave them there for like hours. I am so happy when somebody hopefully will eventually realize that that wasn't the right way to go. But it was kind of terrible to read about. But anyway, how this scene that I'm about to read about came up was that Deborah witnessed an attendant that wasn't everyone's favorite, to put it mildly. And he was trying to take this girl's pulse while she was in the pack because the criteria for getting out of that, pack was, having a lowered heart rate or whatever, after being so violent. Once the blood pressure and the heart rate calms down, they figured, oh, we'll take that was the test for when to take someone out. So anyway, he was trying to take this girl's pulse, and she kept moving her head, and then he just grabbed her and he started hitting her. And Deborah felt so bad that she couldn't do anything about it. She couldn't say anything, and so she talked to Dr. Freed, and Dr. Freed said, "Well, I'll mention it at a staff meeting, but really it's kind of like your word against his, and probably nothing will get done." And she says, "Well, what's the point of being in your guys' world, your reality, Earth, as she puts it, if there isn't justice?" And here's the quote. Oh, um, I will get there. Here we go. So, and then she says, yeah, so she says, what good is your reality then? And Dr. Freed says, look here, fury. Oh, that's the other thing. Yeah, Furie, or I, yeah, fury. Fury is the name that she gave Dr. Freed in her language, and it means fire touch. And there was a point in the book where Dr. Freed touched her and she felt like her arm was burning off, so that was the name. Anyway, I never promised you a rose garden. I never promised you perfect justice. Blah, blah, blah. Oh. I never promised you peace or happiness. My help is that you can be free to fight for all of these things. The only reality, the only reality offer is challenge, and being well is free to accept it or not at whatever level you are capable. I never promise lies, and the rose garden world of perfection is a lie, and a bore too. Um, so that was basically her stance on the whole treatment was, that getting well wasn't, being perfect or, being in a perfect world. It was about, being able to fight for the challenges that do come up and having strength and, the ability to be able to do that. What I like about this book is the long-term work that she did uh, with Dr. Freed and the back and forth nature of her recovery. That it wasn't linear, it wasn't in a straight line. It was, she would gain some insights and then she would, lose it again. She would, and it really shows, I think, a realistic picture of someone dealing with any mental illness, but especially something so severe as schizophrenia, where it's like it's not a step-by-step thing. It's kind of all over the place. There was a point in the book where she really got angry and was burning herself because she felt things kind of falling apart inside her, but then it just exploded. And one day she wrote all the Yori words on the wall in a bathroom, and totally, and it was. I think that was a turning point for her. It was like letting everything out, where she had kept it so secret for so long, and it was. But the staff thought that she was getting sicker, but it was really, kind of like I guess, getting worse before you get better type thing. And like I said, so I liked the long-term approach of it. That something that severe needs a long-term treatment, and it really showed the this two steps. Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, two steps forward, one step, whatever. I don't know. The that it goes back and forth. Um, the gains and then losing back. Um, yeah. Anyway, I can talk. um, uh, so yeah, I would definitely recommend this book. I think that it's good for anyone who is dealing with any kind of mental illness, not just schizophrenia, but really anything, And it shows that we all have strengths and we all have to choose, what do we want to do in our lives, do we want to fight whatever is going on inside or not? And I liked it a lot, and I would highly recommend it to anyone interested in that kind of subject. I think it would be good for psychology classes to read and teachers to recommend to read. I think it would spark some great discussions, especially among um, professors, where the psychodynamic analytical orientation is where they sort of head um, in their thinking. I think it's a great work for exploring that and exploring the relationship between Deborah and Dr. Freed. And then the book also talks about a big part of it is Deborah's family and how they react and the whole family dynamics, which is a whole other issue, and that can be explored too. So very good. Okay, that's it for this review. And give me some comments if you want about if you've read the book or not. I'm also going to probably write up a similar write up on it to put on my blog, matterstosam.wordpress.com. So you can feel free to read that if you want. I have some other book reviews on there. So I will talk to you all later, okay? Thanks. Bye.